when we look at our nervous system, we say, okay, we all have been born into a certain family system, into a world, into a global situation, from our genetic and epigenetic tendencies to the global situation of our time. All of that is part of how we live our daily life. And of course, all of that is also part of what kind of maybe trauma or trauma history is part of our ancestors, our own childhood, our interactions every day. And so so we can say part of us is integrated. What does it mean integrated? That the experiences that we had could be integrated, digested, and integrated into a sense of self that is growing, becoming more mature, and is able to respond to the world in a regulated way. What does dysregulated mean? That I am stressed, but I cannot easily downregulate my stress and then be with others, sleep well, recuperate, ground myself. And so there are parts of us that are anyway regulated, and there are other parts that are not. And so today we are saying, wow, we can train and integrate our nervous system so that the flow of different parts of our nervous system in our body become more and more open so that more and more life situations can be met versus being reacted to. So we all know when we become reactive, we get more and more polarized. So the higher is our escalated stress level, we become more polarized. So we become even more worried. We drop into fight or flight tendencies. We become more aggressive or angry. Or when we are really stressed out, or we were really stressed or hurt in the past, then we become frozen. We become frozen, we become numb, we become uh, disengaged, we kind of shut down or checked out. And all of that is really stressed. So, on the one hand, we often call reactivity more the fight and flight version of it because that's more obvious. But being numb, being disengaged, being internally distant is also triggered, but just in another way. And it's not that obvious to us. And that's why we want to say, okay, the practice of our nervous system really matters. Like practicing regulation in our nervous system really matters out of multiple reasons. One is, of course, it is very good for our health and for our mental health. Number one. Second, it's much more pleasant, creative, and productive to be in a more regulated state and meet the challenges from a more resourced and regulated state. We could say resilience is the capacity to stay related to challenges. So it means in my more mature version, which means also in my more regulated version, I can stay related also when it's challenging much longer. It doesn't work all the time because if they're really traumatizing situations, maybe that's not going to work. But we are able to stay connected in more challenging situations more of the time. And that's why also for everybody that is in leadership positions, works with clients, is a parent or a husband, a wife, an intimate partner, we all have situations that are more challenging, and training and integrating our nervous system is an absolute win-win-win for ourselves, for our relationships, for the society. So that's why our nervous system state really matters. And it doesn't only just matter for us, for ourselves, it also matters for the people around us. Because if your inner state is more grounded and regulated, then everybody who is connecting to you, everybody who is relating to you, everybody in your ecosystem will get a more grounded transmission of your nervous system, because our nervous systems speak anyway, no matter if we are aware of it or not. Our nervous systems transmit information all the time. If that information comes more open, more relaxed, more grounded, it invites everybody else into a similar state. That's why I often say the stress goes viral in already stressed nervous systems, but presence goes viral. What does that mean? Stress goes viral in when many people carry latent stress in their nervous system. When somebody is really stressed, it activates that stress like a wildfire. But if somebody is very regulated, even if other people get stressed, the tendency is at least, or the probability is much higher that that stress can ground itself. That's why our nervous system is like a lightning rod on the house. You know, when the lightning hits the house, the lightning rod takes the electricity immediately into the ground and doesn't burn your house. The same is with presence. Presence can ground stress, even if the environment is very stressed and there are some present people in the room, it grounds the stress and turns it into soil. It grounds the stress and turns it into soil, which means we can digest it. We can integrate the stress and it becomes soil, which means ground, which means a healthy connection to the land, which means generosity, openness, open-heartedness, warmth. So grounding really matters, not only because we are more connected to our body, also for everybody who does inner work or inner self-reflection work or any kind of therapeutic or coaching or any kind of work, we need to be in a certain state to really reflect and digest. What is trauma healing? Is digesting undigested material. What is individual or personal development? Is transforming parts of the past into a new future. All of that needs a certain state. We all know that when we feel more grounded and relaxed, we digest better, like our bodies can self-heal themselves better. But we are also part of a much wider ecosystemic healing mechanism. We are able to listen to people deeper. Listening makes meaningful conversations. Regulation helps other people to regulate themselves. So when somebody is really stressed and you're regulated, your nervous system is a great asset to take that stress down, to open up new functions in the brain that are much better equipped to solve challenges and to solve them. And then there are some people that say, oh, because we have to also note that most probably many of us grew up, at least partly, in family systems, schooling systems, and in societies where stress is, and not only healthy creative stress, also toxic stress, is part of our everyday life. That's why we normalized a certain dimension of stress becomes normal. This we say, okay, this is how life is. And I would say, no, 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 no. This is how life is when it's partly hurt. So the systemic stress that has been normalized is not normal. That's not how life is. That's how life is when it's partly hurt. And so when we heal, and also when we collectively heal, we transcend in a way one notion of life and see, wow, there are other options of living that are less stressed, but they are not less motivated to engage. Because some people are kind of worried that when their stress gets more regulated, they will not be productive anymore. They will not stand up for any kind of justice in the world. They will not stand in if we need to stand in and correct things that are going wrong in the world. We are not, that is not, that equation is a function of normalizing a certain level of stress, a certain level of reactivity that then we call action. But if we are, it's like the fuel from power, thousands of years of power over hierarchies created a world in us, and we carry this in our genes, we carry this in our education, we carry this in many parts of the society, that the after, either the current effects or the after effects of strong power over hierarchies made fear a driver to act. But same as we change the fuel system, more or less, in the world to a different alternative fuel options, the motivation of creativity is way more powerful than the motivation of fear. But fear is much more existential. Creativity is based on true soul motivation, is what I really want to, not what I should contribute, what I want to contribute. And that's very different. It's not, should I behave like this? Should I do this ethically? Should I live this? Should I go out on the street and go to a demonstration? No, it's not a should. It's I choose. I choose because I feel it's right. And so the myth that just fear motivates us or stress motivates us to be active in the world, I think is something we really have to look at. That from a more grounded, more mature place, we can maybe be even more productive, because the productivity comes from a different fuel source that is much more connected to something that's essential. And that's our contribution to the world. And it's also more generous, and it's less prone to create crisis all the time. And that's why I think an individual and a collective practice to change the imprints. These are often thousands of years of going through recurrent collective traumatizations, to go through all kinds of wars, through all kinds of collective wounds that create a lot of stress, and then they reverberate in family systems for generations. Like after it seems like in certain areas we reached peace agreements, the war is not over. It just reverberates through the family systems. It needs a much deeper peace to create peace, really, that is sustainable.